Well, hello, excuse me. Hello, guys. This is Debbie from Debbie J's Crafting Corner. First, I do want to just make sure that you can hear me. We had some issues last week with the sound, so I want to make sure that you guys can hear me tonight. I do want to go ahead and say hello to Miss Susie. She looks like she's been sitting here waiting for a little bit. So as soon as you come in, go ahead and pop a note up there in the comments for me. Let me know that you are here and whether or not you can hear me and see everything okay before we get started. Yeah, just doing that quick sound check for you. So what I'm going to be making this week is a cute little shaker card like this one. This one, it doesn't really move around a lot, but oh my gosh, this thing is too much fun. This is a liquid shaker card I had seen on Facebook in one of the groups. Hi Wendy, hi Faith. So I saw on a Facebook group someone had done a shaker card, a liquid shaker card, and we were just so enthralled with the idea that I just had to research it to see exactly how do I do one of those things. And it turns out that it is really super easy to do it. So I decided, since we're doing liquid, I wanted to do mermaids. I haven't done any cards with mermaids in a bit, so I thought I'd go ahead and pull out this little mermaid that I've got. I've actually got lots of mermaid stamps, and this is one of those that I really haven't used much. It's from the Greeting Farm, and it's Tri-Shell Mermaid. So I went ahead and I stamped out. Oh, I just realized there was one more thing I was going to do before getting started. I was going to go ahead and get one of these cut out with my scanning cup, but I think instead I'm just going to go ahead and freehand it. I think it did a really good job of cutting the one that I did for this sample, just to see how it worked out. But that would be too much time away from the from the camera, so I'm going to go ahead and just fussy cut this little lady out. And you probably see, just like a lot of other folks, I tend to turn the paper more so than the scissors. And the reason for that is it gives you better control. And that's one of those things that when you first start card making, you have no idea that there are little tips and tricks to make it a lot easier for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut her out real quick, and then we can get started with the coloring, and then we can put together that really nice shaker card. So also let me know on the sound how it's doing. I did a little bit of an adjustment on the background music because I think it was a little bit too low. And if it's too loud for you guys, let me know and I can go ahead and readjust that. I'm still experimenting with some of the settings, and I want to make sure that it's good for you guys. And another quick question, are any of you guys going to be making one with me? Because if you do, I would really love to see a picture of your final product. So I'm just trimming pretty close to the edge. I am leaving a slight white border. That makes fussy cutting a lot easier to do because you don't have to be quite as precise. If I try cutting right on the line, then I have a tendency to sometimes go a little bit into the image where I really don't want to. And this is one of the nice things about having that cutting machine, is I don't have to do fussy cutting all that much. And it makes it nice because, especially on some really intricate stamps. And I just saw a ton of comments just come through, so thank you guys. I see that Michelle is here. She's up in Virginia. We've got TR, it's excited because she's here earlier today and that she wants to talk about scan and cut. Miss Elizabeth Costa Rogers is here. Tammy with the Stampin' Okie is here too. If you haven't seen hers, she just put up a couple of brand new videos, her first videos on her new YouTube channel. I went ahead and shared that over in the Crafting with Debbie Facebook group so you guys could see them. I'm really impressed, Tammy. You're on to a good start, so thanks for sharing. When it comes to all of the stuff that you need for making one of these cute shaker cards, it turns out you really don't need all that much. You need your regular card making supplies, something to cut out your window with, and you need a ziplock, and you need shaker bits of some sort. And what I'm going to be using is something that you guys I know have got on hand because of the whole pandemic. I'm using hand sanitizer. So if you've got all that stuff, this is probably the hardest part to get. You can use hand sanitizer, hair gel, clear hand soap, Dawn dish detergent. I just decided I didn't want that really rich deep blue, so that's why I'm going with a clear hand sanitizer instead. So I'm going to go ahead and just start coloring this pretty little lady up, and I'm going to do it the same way that I did the others. And believe it or not, I am all prepared. I put everything in a little baggie so that I've got everything I need right here, because how many times do I have to go out to the side to get what I actually need? So I'm going to start off with her hair. I have to say, this time that I did her hair, I'm impressed with myself. You know how sometimes you make, yes, Michelle, you can use baby oil, you can use mineral oil. I would not recommend mineral spirits because I mentioned that to my husband because I said the words wrong. I had watched a couple of videos over the last few days, and I said mineral spirits and says, you don't want to do that because it will eat through the plastic of the bag. Baby oil would work perfect though. I even saw a video where someone used water. So you basically need some kind of liquid that you can put in a Ziploc bag and seal it up good. So it will work fine with all of those. So we've got Carmen's here. So hi, Miss Carmen. Hi, Sandy. Hi, Patty. And hi, and I didn't say hi to you, Michelle, but hello, Michelle. So I'm going to go ahead and start coloring up this little mermaid. I did a little more contrast with the hair this last time. This is one of those colors that I really don't use much because I'm afraid of it. It's too dark. This is my darkest red that I have. These are all Spectrum Noir markers, and the DR family is DR1 through DR7. So I'm going to be using DR7, DR1, and then I wanted a little bit of orange in there, so I'm using OR2. And I'm just going to use just a tiny bit down at the ends to start off with. All those places where you would have the deepest shadow. But I don't want it to be too much, and I'll go back over it a second time so that it's, you know, that it blends nice, but you still have that contrast. And I think it was Catherine Kelly that talks about, you know, crazy dark and crazy light, and I am trying some of her suggestions because I have, for some reason, in my brain, I was thinking when it comes to blending that you need to have everything blend. So I've been blending out a little bit more than I should and not leaving that contrast, but that is one of those things that I'm trying to change, and it seems to be working out pretty good. So in case you don't know me or you haven't been by here before, my name is Debbie. I have a blog and YouTube channel that's Debbie J's Crafting Corner, and I love creating pretty much anything and everything. I started this whole mess playing with planner stuff, you know, making planner inserts and that sort of thing, and actually, one of the things I made to begin with was another liquid kind of thing, and I never did do a video on it. I made one of those sensory bottles, I think is what it's called, for some friends at work. And they loved it so much, one of my friends said, oh, you should do a tutorial on that. I never did one on that, but I went ahead and started my YouTube channel. And that was in 2017. So I've been kind of obsessed with crafting and creating pretty much ever since then. The fun part is making things for your friends and having them get excited and so happy that you made something for them. I love to see that smile on people's faces. Right now we can't really see the smiles, but those little notes in Facebook saying, "Thank you so much for the card that you sent me," that just brightens up my day every single time. I also read when it came to using Spectrum to Noir markers that some folks have trouble with them because you don't quite get that flicking motion as well, or it's not as easy as when you've got the brush tip markers, because these are bullet nib. But I'm getting better at it, and I think the brush nib, which I do have some brush nib markers, they don't work as well for me because I don't really know how to control them yet. And that's just something that's just going to take me some time and practicing with them more. Which you guys know that I've got those those Arteza markers that I play with occasionally, but I tend to do kind of watercolor things with those because they're, water-based, and I love those things. Those are so much fun. Used to about a year or so ago, all of my techniques that I was pretty much doing everything just using these markers, and I thought I got pretty good at it, and then I got away from using that much because I've been trying to do so many other things. There's so many different crafty things that you can do, different techniques that you can try, and I am a firm believer in trying all of them, but it's just a question of whether or not you have time to get them all done. So I'm just bringing in some of this lighter red into that dark, almost brownish red that was the shade color, the shadow color, and just pulling that color out a little bit, but leaving lots and lots of white space. That is another thing that I have been learning a little bit more to do, because that's what gives you that nice contrast so that you can, so everything looks shiny. That's the thing. When I see some people's coloring, their alcohol marker coloring, because they leave that white or that lighter spot or have that type of contrast, it really makes the hair that they're doing look really, really shiny. And I just love that look, so I have to practice and get better at that. So while I am coloring, why don't you guys tell me, what are you guys working on at the moment? I mean, have you been doing any additional crafting? Have you been just busy with work? I mean, yesterday was a holiday, so hopefully you got some shopping or something in instead of having to go to a job. Okay, so I'm almost done with the first layer of this color, and then I'm going to go in with that orange. No, actually this is the first one that I made, Terry. And this one, I feel that number one, I made it too full, and number two, I used these glitter shapes that I got from Target that you've seen me use on a lot of cards. I didn't realize until putting them in here that they are a little bit sharp on that pointed end. Not real sharp, but I'm afraid that if I tried sending this specific one through the mail, that it would probably break because of those sharp edges. So for the one I'm doing today, I'm planning on using not as much stuff, making sure it's nice and flat, and I'm going to be using seed beads instead of these. Another thing, you probably noticed that this is not clear, and I showed you that I used clear hand sanitizer. Well, that means that these are actually colored with alcohol ink. So the ink kind of it basically colored the gel, which I think is really cool, but I didn't know it and I wasn't expecting it until I put everything together. It's like, oh, this is turning kind of a pinkish orange because we've got different colors of pink, we've got the gold. So I think the original color of all of these little sequin things here, the little hearts, they were all, to start off with, silver, and then they were colored with alcohol ink. That also means that I could take any of those and I could use my alcohol markers and change the colors on them if I ever choose to, you know, depending on what project I'm using. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and add in some of the orange. I do need to refill these. But for this technique, it's actually not too bad because it prevents me from putting too much color down too fast. So I'm getting a little bit more of that flicking in there. But that also means it's probably going to take me a little longer to get this done unless I give up and start using the chisel nib like I tend to do. Michelle, you are so right that handmade is always best. Okay, yeah, I am getting impatient. I can't go with the ink that is not coming out well enough. The thing is, after I put this orange down, I'm going to go back in with some more of those reds to bring out the detail a little bit more. But even that looks pretty. It does need a bit more of the of the reds though, but at the moment it looks pretty good. Yes and no, Patty. The problem with it when you're using the sheets of acetate is you have to seal them very, very well. And you can even try using a fuse tool, but my experience with my own fuse tool has been that 9 times out of 10, when I'm trying to, say, seal part of a bag like this, I end up cutting it open. So it's not, you have to make sure that because this is liquid, that this is not going to come apart. Ziplocks are perfect for that because they are designed to hold wet things in your fridge. So those I think work out probably the best, and most of us have got some kind of a Ziploc. Like this one I think is a cheap Publix brand. That's one of our local stores, so it's less expensive than the regular. We've also got a lot of those little zip bags that we buy from like Michael's or Target or whatever, and from clear bags, so that we could send them off to, say, send out goodies and such to some of our other crafty friends. Sheets of acetate I think would probably work as a protection, but you'd still need one of these to be able to hold your liquid medium. I mean, does that make sense, or was I answering the wrong question? Yeah, I think that tonight or tomorrow I have to refill these. Oh, Elizabeth, I just caught that. You had a terrible headache yesterday. You poor thing. Is your migraine gone now, I hope? Only times I get a migraine is if I've been drinking a lot of coffee, like I am right now, and then I stop. It's that caffeine deprivation. Your body kind of reacts pretty extremely to that. And I think the last time that I had that happen, my husband got a coffee bean out and had me eat it. And don't really like that, but it definitely helped, and my headache went away pretty much immediately. That was what was nice. And Elizabeth doesn't like needlepoint or crochet. Okay, so that is the first layer of the orange. That's probably going to be the only layer of the orange. I didn't realize this one was that dry. My OR1 is drier. So let me go ahead and add some more of this red in. And give her hair a little bit more dimension, because it looks a little flat with just that much orange. Actually, let me get the darker one. I didn't realize I was doing the lighter red, but I need some of that darker red too. Not a ton, because I don't want it to be too dark. There we go. And come back in with some more of the red. Oh, her hair is looking so cute. Okay, I'm gonna say that that is good enough. I can always go back and touch up again later if I want. For her skin, I'm just using FS1 and FS4. FS4 is kind of for the shadows, and FS1 is that light regular tone. And I don't understand what you just said, TR. What's not good with Copics? So I'm just adding basically a little bit of this color in right where I think the shadows should be on her face. And that's the FS1, and then I'm going to go back in with the FS4 and bring some of that shadow down. And I'm going to go ahead and check one more time with you guys. Is everybody still able to hear me, or are we having any kind of sound issues like we did last week? I think I fixed it, and I did a couple of sound checks before coming on with you guys, but I really want to make sure, want to make sure I'm not cutting out at all, that everything that I'm saying is pretty clear. I went back after the video last week and noticed that there were a lot of places throughout from like the very beginning where I was breaking up the entire time, so I don't know how you guys were able to handle listening to me last week. Okay, TR says that she's not good with Copics. Well, guess what, honey? I don't use Copics. I've been using Spectrum Noir since day one, and the reason for that is because I'm cheap, and I wasn't willing to... I saw all the videos showing how cool alcohol markers were, and when I saw that Spectrum Noirs were so much less expensive than the Copics, I went ahead and got my first few to try them out, and I fell in love. So now I've got like over 200. I also found some that were on sale. Trying to remember the name of the company. I think it was Blitzy, and they're no longer in business. Go figure. But I got a bunch of stuff at that time because it was so inexpensive. Okay, I did put away all of the greens. For those, I was using the BT family, and I really like the way that those turned out. So I'm going to go ahead and grab those. So I've got BT5, BT3, and BT1. And thank you, Patty, and thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for letting me know that the sound is okay. So for her tail, I did some pretty basic coloring on that one. I'm just using the darkest BT5 for all of the darkest areas. Then I came in with the BT3, and then to finish it up, I used BT1 as the lightest. And again, I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I wound up going back in twice on all of the colors, even with those. And it's pretty simple coloring. I did a little bit of dimension, but not a ton. But like I said before, I am trying to do more of that higher contrast, and these did pretty well. I probably could go a little bit more towards the dark side, I guess, and get some more contrast there. And I'm not really willing to split apart some of the different color families yet. That's going to be more experimenting on my side when I'm not on video, because you guys don't really want to see all of my mistakes. I know you say you do, but you really don't. So I'm just putting in some of those shadows there for her tail. And what's funny is this is the first time that I've used this stamp. I've had it, like most of the stuff in my stash, I've had it for a year or more. I mean, last year I wasn't exactly on a no spend, but I basically stopped just out of choice. You know, I didn't want to go to the stores. There was really no reason, and I had tons of stuff in my stash anyway. So what I'm doing at this part is I'm going to go ahead and use the BT3 to line the top part of her tail, I guess, because I don't want it to be all the dark. Let me go ahead and put this one piece here that's going to be the shadow behind that little piece of tail, part of the fin. Go ahead and bring this down, and it's going to make it look a little bit different. I mean, this is going to be a mid-tone for the rest of the tail, but it's going to be the darkest part for this part that I think would be like closer to the surface of the, assuming she's underwater, closer to where the light source would be. And I'm not really paying that much attention to light source on this. That's one area that I'm really not an expert on. And again, I'm going to try using some of that flicking, and I do tend to flick away from myself instead of towards myself. It just seems easier for me to do it that way. And she is just too pretty. And I am on some of these other areas that don't really need the flicking, you know, to come of the edges. I'm just using this lighter color to pull some of that darker out into the center. Just lighten it up a little bit and get rid of some of that harsh edge. And as usual, I'm turning my paper all over the place. Oh, thank you so much, TR. I do like the way that her hair turned out. And I have struggled with doing hair, and I realize what the reason is. I don't do a lot of contrast, so it tends to look flat. And this time I did a much better job because I did let myself leave a lot of that contrast in. Now this one I think I like better because this one's got a little bit more orange, so I'm probably going to go like after the fact and go back in and clean it up a little bit more. But there's no way to duplicate it. I cannot do two this exact same way. They're always just a little bit different. Okay, this one, don't know if it's starting to get dry or not. Feels like it. So I'm going to go on in with the chisel nib. Chisel nib is nice because you can put down a lot more color down at once, but you don't get as much of the detail that you might want to get. When it comes to the base color, that's fine though, because that's not really what you're going for at that point. You're going in for just getting the color down. And then use the darker colors to get all that detail. And her tail looks pretty good. Go back in. Actually, this part needs a little more blending.
6 o'clock.
Let me get the the BT3 and pull it out a little bit more. Another thing I need to experiment with and try is adding detail with other things like gel pens and or pencils and stuff over my markers, because I don't really mix the mediums very much. Okay, let me go ahead and just blend this little bit out here. Get rid of that harsh line. That looks pretty good. I have not tried the Arteza alcohol markers. Probably because I've got so many of what I've already got. I mean, I just found out within the last couple of days that that the Illustrator, I think it's the Spectrum Noir and Illustrator, I'm probably saying the name wrong, but the newest version of the markers have got a brush tip, but it's the exact same ink. So I may, at some point when my markers start wearing down, I may switch over and excuse me, and get those just so I can have the brush nib. And then I've still got these chisel nib, these bullet nibs, so I can always swap them out if I chose to, assuming that they would both fit. I don't really need a second set of big old set of markers. I've got the entire front of my desk here is my marker set. So I've got, like I said, I've got a ton of them right here. It's the entire 200 and whatever it is Spectrum Noir set. But I know that Copics have got more colors. So this one is BP6, that's the one that I'm using as the darkest, and then I've got BP3 and then BP1 as the lightest. I think I'm going to go in with the BP1 first, and then I'll come back with the BP3 and get rid of some of those edges. And I know that this color doesn't really match her hair, but it matches the paper that I'm going to be using for the frame. So that's one reason why I picked it. It's like it kind of pulled it all together. Okay, and then her little top. I'm going to use that BP6 again just for the shadow right up against her tail. And just pull it out with the BP1. There's not really any reason to go into more detail than that. And then first time around I didn't do any shading on the little pearls, but I did it this time. I figured it'll probably look a little bit better. Okay, and now I'm noticing when I colored those in that I missed a little bit right on the edges with the orange for her hair, so I'm going to go back in with that so we don't have little pieces of white sticking around. Okay, and then I decided I wanted to give her a nice color for her eyes, so I went ahead and took one of the blue greens and colored her eyes so her eyes actually match her tail. So I'm going to use BT3 so it's not too dark. Just coloring in the white part of the eyes, and that just finishes up. I think I used BT1 that time, so this one's got a little bit darker of eyes. So now let me get all of my markers out of the way. So next thing that we need to do is we need to get the base ready. And for that I'm going to be using, okay, here we go. Just some regular white cardstock. And this is not the heavyweight stuff that I use for card bases. This one you could use your Accent Opaque, you could use Recollection 65 pound, Nina Solar White, whatever. We're not going to be doing anything other than doing this one little stamp here, so we don't really need really high quality, blendable paper. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this down to 2 panels of 4 1/4. And then I'm also going to cut down another piece that I'm going to be using for that frame. Now this is a couple of dies that I've got from Gemini. It's the Gemini Ragged Edge. I don't remember, but I will I will leave a, actually I can look that up real quick because I had my list up. These are the Torn Edge dies, heart shape, from Gemini. It's Gemini Elements. So I've got these recently and I kind of like that torn edge, so that's what I'm using. So I'm going to go ahead and use the smallest of these to cut a hole in both of the pieces of card. This is going to be basically what I'm going to be creating is a sandwich. This is going to be the back panel, and then we're going to adhere this to the card base. So we're going to have the back panel, we're going to have this front panel that's got the window, and then we're going to have a little frame around the window. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these two together at the same time just so that I can get basically the shapes and everything about right. I didn't do that on this other one. I had the hardest time getting my frame in the right spot after I cut everything. So let me go ahead and decide where do I want this frame to be. And I think that is good enough positioning. And of course I need another piece of washi to make sure I hold it in place right. Yeah, Elizabeth, I have seen that you do a wonderful job mixing the medias on your cards. It's just one of those things that it's like if I'm using one thing, that's what I'm using. I'm a little bit too OCD, so it's going to take me a while to get the hang of doing it otherwise. And I am getting out my plates so I can get this done. Where's that other plate? Okay, I was almost prepared. There we go. And I don't remember if I mentioned this on another video, but Elizabeth had mentioned that she basically kind of fiddled around with the sandwich that she was using for her Gemini Junior because everything was getting warped. This is one of my Gemini plates, and it's not too bad. It's not as bad as my other one was. And of course my magic mat is awesome. It doesn't really get warped. But the other two plates were, because I have to sandwich it between. This is a plate from my Sizzix machine, and it's slightly thinner than my Gemini. I mean, you can probably see that. That is a little bit thinner than this one. So what I'm doing, and it seems to be working out pretty good, and I won't recommend you do this on yours. Experiment. I don't know what it'll do with my warranty, any of that kind of stuff. I'm using this as one of my plates. Then I've got my mat, and then I've got my Gemini mat, and it's working perfectly to get everything cut the way that I need to without warping my plates any worse. And so far it has not done anything to the Sizzix plate. I didn't realize that the reason that my plates were warping is because it had too much pressure going through my Gemini Junior. Or for that matter, too much pressure going through my Big Kick machine. Because, like everybody else, I have had a lot of trouble with my plates warping. Okay. So now we have got to be careful not to rip it. Okay. Now we've got a window. And this is the window that we're going to be putting our shaker behind. Okay, and since I am right now doing stuff with my Gemini Junior, I might as well go ahead and do that frame because I wanted a pretty frame to go around the shaker. So let me get that pretty much centered. And then just tack it down with a couple pieces of washi. And that's close enough. I'll go ahead and run this one through, and then I'll have a little frame to go around that heart. And yes, Susie, I flip my plates all the time. Even on my Sizzix, it got to a point that every time when I flipped them, it basically warped them in the opposite direction. Have still not figured out why on that. But I have a feeling that what it is the pressure from the rollers is breaking down the plastic in the center of my plates because there's so much pressure there. Okay, so that is the die cutting done. And next for the fun part. Now this time I'm going to be much more careful. I am not going to put nearly as much of the gel in. Okay, that might... I think I need a little bit more. And I'm going to be using some glitter. These are some glitter flakes I got from Michael's a while back. And I think I have a little spoon around here somewhere. I'll use this thing. I am trying to squish it around, but I didn't get enough liquid up where the glitter is. So I think I will need a little bit more. Like I said, I'm trying not to use too much because, like I said, the last one is a little bit too... Let me let you see what this kind of looks like. And because I'm using this gel, it's going to stay pretty stable, but think about it. If anybody is touching it, they're going to see it and they're going to want to touch it because it's cool looking. Also going to use some seed beads. So, got a couple little containers out over here. And since we've got, the pink is going to match my heart frame and her shell. But let's see, I think I want to do some of these orange. Maybe a red too. So the bag that I'm using right now is just a regular sandwich bag size. You can use whatever size that you choose to, as long as it's going to be big enough to cover for your window to go around. Okay, I'm starting to think I'm going to have to put some water in there too. Give it a little extra movement. Okay. And it works so easy and so so quick the first time that I'm surprised I'm struggling a little bit on this one. So sorry about that, guys. Okay, so I'm gonna put some of these guys in there. Some of these in. It's hard to estimate how much I'm gonna need with this. I mean, with the last one, I just started putting tons of sequins in. Okay, try squishing some of that around. There we go. Now I'm getting it to move around a little bit. That's getting better. So I'm having to bring, what I'm doing is I'm bringing the gel up to where the beads are and then grabbing the beads to be able to mix them together in there. Okay. And this is feeling pretty flat, so I think I'm doing good with not putting too much of the gel in, but I am going to put a little bit more. I think that is going to do it for me. Okay. So now I'm going to try to get most of the air out without emptying the gel out, and go ahead and seal that up. And the suggestion I'm going to be using, I watched several videos. I mean, there was so there were some that said use water. You could use hair gel. Hair gel has the least amount of movement. The most amount of movement would be on something like mineral oil, baby oil, or water. The one I'm using, I feel, is probably somewhere in the middle, because hand sanitizer really doesn't move around all that much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this panel down some, because what I want to do is I want to wrap this around, and then we're going to adhere everything down on top. But I also need to have room to put some foam tape along the edges that won't be seen, to have this kind of in the middle. So the space I need for the foam tape is probably about, I'm going to say probably about a ½ an inch. Let me see. I'm afraid I'm going to be doing it too big. I mean, cutting off too much. So this frame is a little over 3½. So if I cut it at 3 3/4, that should be fine. And then for the top to bottom, I am going to go ahead and cut off a full inch on that one. So it's going to be 4½. And because I experimented the first time around, I think I figured out a way that it's going to work a little bit easier and faster for me putting it together. So we know that this is kind of where that's going to be. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to put the foam tape at the top and the bottom. Oh, there was a bead. But first I'm going to put the foam tape at the top and the bottom, because it should be able to fit a full ½ inch. 3/4 of an inch, I think this is. Nope, this is the ½ inch strip. So it should be able to fit a ½ inch top and bottom, and then I may have to trim this so that it'll fit better on the sides. But what I want to do is I basically want to make it so, actually I'm looking at the wrong panel. Let me get what I need is a card base. I was going to use this one. I could still use this one. That's what I was talking about. Okay. I got myself confused. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to go ahead and score and fold my card base. Because what I want to do is I want to make the shaker part to be able to go on the card base. And I want the foam to go around the edges. Okay. And my card, as always, is slightly bigger than 8.5 by 11, so I go ahead and trim that excess off. Okay. So I'm going to be putting on the card base a strip of foam tape. And I am going to trim this down a little bit more. So I want to be able to put, I need to be able to put enough foam on all 4 sides so that it's not as easily smushed. I can say smushed, right? Oh, you guys are too sweet. Thanks, Patty. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so that should be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and put, the easiest way to do double-sided, double thickness tape is to fold your tape in half. Just fold it back on itself. It makes it a lot easier to work with. You can cut it to whatever width that you need. And I just realized that I still have that little note stuck up there on the screen. Sorry about that. So I'm going to start off with just putting the double layer of foam tape down here at the bottom. And I just realized instead of putting it on that one, I had forgotten I had this guy. So this one, I'm going to go ahead and use it like I need to. Go ahead and put it on the edge there. Do it again at the bottom. And then make sure that my panel for the middle is the size that I want it. So I still want this to fit in the middle, which it does not. That's fine, I can still trim it down a little bit. Okay, so that's going to fit in there fine. And I think I'm going to need to do the same thing with the foam tape, the double layer, but I'm going to have to cut it in half in order for it to fit here. So I'm going to have to cut it in half vertically. Go ahead and create another piece here, because I only had that much left. And first thing I'm going to use this little piece. So now I've got 2 1/2-inch double layer pieces. Okay, and this piece is still fitting in there. That's why I'm leaving it in there, because I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to I measure, and then sometimes I forget that I measured and that I mess up. And I don't really want to waste all the time that I just spent. I mean, this part, if I mess up, I've got the pretty little mermaid, so I can always go back and add her later, you know. So I'm just butting that up, taking it up here to the end. And this works great for when you're doing regular shaker cards too, by the way. One of the nice things with this is you don't really have to worry about whether or not it's sticky on the inside, you know, like you do with regular shakers, because, you know, you don't want your shaker bits getting caught on the on the foam. Okay, so that part is fine, and this is going to fit, and that's the reason I did that part first. So now what we're going to do with our shaker part is I'm going to try squeezing as much of the shaker parts, the glitter and the gel, towards the center. Okay. Then I'm going to wrap it around my cardstock. And then to hold it in place, I'm going to use some strong double-sided adhesive. The one that I'm using right now are these quarter-inch tape from scrapbook.com. that back in there. And one of the positives about trying to use the right size bag, you know, one that's more going to fit, is because it's going to be a little bit difficult with folding this. You do not want to cut this, because if you do, everything's going to fall out of it, and you don't want that to happen. And of course I squished. Okay, you guys are going to be playing with this so much you're never going to get your card done. You know that, right? See if I can get those beads to move towards the middle again. Go ahead and pull it snug. Okay, so that's adhered down. At this part, I do not have any scotch tape. I'm going to just use a... That's not going to work. I'm going to use a washi tape. I was organized and I thought I had everything right where I needed it, and now I'm still having to dig into these darn drawers and make a mess. And I just had... If it was a snake, it would have bit me. So yeah, I did not realize that my washi tape was right there in front of me. Okay. Go ahead and tear off a piece of that so I can try to get this on there a little bit straight. So this is the hard part, is I'm gonna go ahead and just fold it down. After I get the gel back to where it's supposed to be, it oozed out. Rather, it oozed into this section. It didn't ooze out. So I'm folding the hard plastic part. I'm bringing this down, and there is a piece of adhesive right there, so it is holding the plastic bag down. Then I'm going to tape this down. And this is going to be inside the card. And I just realized something else I should have done too. I needed to round those corners, because otherwise the corners could conceivably poke a hole in my plastic. And I am being very, very gentle, trying not to poke any holes anywhere. Okay. Okay, so for this part, I am going to go ahead and use my corner rounder. And I think I may have been fussing with it enough that I'm wondering if I just didn't seal it tight, because I think I felt a little bit of the gel, but that may have just been pushed out because I didn't seal it well enough. So you always want to make sure to be careful with that. Okay, so let's try it again. And now I'm starting to think that maybe doing the beads was not as good of an idea as I thought it was. I mean, I can't really see them in here, but they do seem to be getting in the way and trying to stay at the edge when I'm trying to move the gel around. So those of you guys that like seeing my mess ups are really enjoying yourself this time, because I can't seem to get this thing to go straight the first time around. Okay, do this one more time. And I think what I'm going to do instead is go one corner and then do another corner and then another corner. Try going around like that. Go ahead and fold that. Fold this over. I'm going to come back to this side. Fold it in. I'll try to get that to stay on. Of course, if I was using a stronger tape than just washi tape, it'd probably work better for that part. So in the coming weeks, I think I'm going to revisit this a few times. And let's see if I can get better at it. Oh, that is so cool. I'm just squishing some of that back so it's back in the center where it belongs. And I can put that down. Yay, I'm finally done with that part. Okay. And I'm going to tape this piece down too. Okay. So now this can go here. And you can see what it's going to look like. So this can go there. I'm going to go ahead and adhere another piece of cardstock on the back. So let me go ahead and cut one down. Okay, Elizabeth, if you're going to do that, use hand sanitizer, honey. Because what do we use to clean our mats with our glass mats with? We use hand sanitizer. So you should be fine. So I'm going to just pull back some of the tape on a couple of the edges so I can try to get this straight the first time around. Because it's going to be a little bit difficult to make sure that it's all positioned perfect. So I'm trying to line it up on this edge on both sides and then press down. Seems like it's okay. And now I will start pulling off the rest of this tape. You guys can probably notice I'm almost out of this Arteza foam. I mean, the foam works great. I say that every time, but I do not like the plastic on here. It is just a pain to try to take off. The Scotch foam adhesive that I used before was so much easier to use, and I've got some from scrapbook.com that I'm going to be using when this one is done. Okay, I'm being careful because I don't really want to squish it too bad either. Okay, so now we got our little squishy, and I'm thinking I probably, just because of the bulk of the bag underneath, I probably should have used 3 layers of the foam tape. So if you can see, you can probably see just a little bit that it does have a little bit of a cushion there. So bye TR, you can catch the rest of the video on the replay later, honey. Thank you so much though for coming in to chat with me and such, okay? I'm getting out my art, and we're almost done anyway. I'm getting out my art glitter glue to go ahead and just add this little heart on there. So we've got the frame. And just like the last time, I forgot to put the sentiment on there until I got everything put together, because why? This is cool and I was excited about trying to get this thing put together. I'm also going to need to trim up the edges a little bit. I did that with scissors last time, but I'm going to try using I'm going to try doing it with my paper trimmer this time, because it'll be quicker and straighter. Just got to be careful not to squish too much on my shaker part. Okay. And this one also has a little bit of the foam going over the edge, so I want to trim that off so it doesn't look yucky at the end. And I am gritting my teeth over here, guys, afraid that I'm going to burst that little bag of jelly. Okay, so that turned out okay. And let's see how it's going to fit on the front. And that is pretty much correct width-wise, so that is good. Now for the sentiment, I am going to use my stamp platform because I want to make sure that I get it in the right spot. And this is the Tim Holtz stamp platform, so because it is, and because the lid comes off, I make sure that I'm putting it on the rubber side. So that's what I did last time. I got it on rubber. So it's not going to press as deep down, and it gives enough room for this foam. So I'll go ahead and put that in place and get out that stamp. Okay, I'm losing my mind. Okay, so the stamp I'm using is also from that stamp set. It just says, "Let's celebrate." And she's on her shell phone. I think that is just too funny. And I'm just going to add this down here to the bottom. And I'm going to use Catherine Pooler's Rockin' Red. I really, really, really love these inks because they pretty much cover in just one attempt. I do have some inks that you have to keep going. And I just noticed that this is not in there quite straight, so let me straighten that up on that edge so that the sentiment will be on there straight. Okay, I am looking back on the chat and I see Linnea was having some problems with the audio a couple minutes ago. So is everyone able to hear me? Like I said, I know that we've had problems with the audio on past videos, but so far I think it's been okay on this one. So Linnea, are you still having any kind of problems with the audio right now? And can everybody else hear me? Okay, thank you, Faith. So you're able to hear me fine, and I am going to go back and listen to the whole thing after the fact and just make sure that there were no problems like last week with, with all the... So I am gently, but I can see it smushing. I'm gently pressing down on that, and it came out perfect. But I think I do want it a little bit darker, so I'm going to go do it a second time. Okay, so that looks good. And now all I need to do is add her to the front. Now, our glitter glue doesn't really stick real well to plastics like the plastic bag. So I'm going to be adding the art glitter glue pretty much to the rest of her, the places that it's not going to cover that. So it's going to be all on that edge and around the bottom. And if it does get on the plastic, it's no big deal. It's just not going to hold too well. So I am trying to make sure that I get good coverage paper to paper. And go ahead and put her kind of off at a little bit of an angle. Oh, she is just adorable. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the whole thing to the front of a card base. And I'm going to, again, use this double-sided tape because I want it to have a really good, strong hold. And I think I'm going to use more adhesive than I did the last time. And you guys got to see that it was a little bit difficult to figure out exactly how much of the gel that I needed. I mean, I thought I didn't have enough for a lot of it, and it turns out that because of folding it, I may have had, again, a little bit too much, and I left a little bit of air. There's an air bubble right there. So putting plenty of this tape down. Hello, Miss Helen. Thanks for joining us, honey. Okay. And then I'm also going to add some art glitter glue to the back too, just to be on the safe side. First, it's going to add a little extra strength, and it'll give me a little wiggle room so I can make sure that I get this cute little mermaid in place. And I'm going to run it over all of that tape. Because the tough part is I'm not going to really be able to push too hard on this to try to get it to adhere well. Okay, so I'm using my desk as basically as a, it messed up her hair, but I'm using my desk pretty much as a straight edge to be able to get that in place. Okay. And then as a final touch, which I did not do last time, but I thought, oh, I'm going to go ahead and add a couple little gems on here too. Now these gems, since they are, clear crystals, will kind of look like bubbles. Little trays out, and I think I'm just going to do a couple of these little tiny ones, not do much, just do a little bit so that it adds just that little extra to her card. And I think I'm going to put one in her hair too. And I never use the small end on this, it just never wants to pick up for me. So another thing I need to research when it comes to this type of card, because it's just so darn cute, is whether or not you can mail it and how to go about mailing it so it doesn't break. Okay, that one's not one to come off. Okay, one more is right here. Okay, so that is going to finish this one up for you for today, guys. I want to thank everybody for coming out and hanging out with me while I made this adorable little card. Sorry about the mess. But thank you so much for that. I think this is really, really, really cute. And if you have some ideas that are a little bit different that you'd like for me to give a try, please let me know. Also, go ahead and comment down in the comments section after the video and let me know, what you thought, how you like this idea, and whether or not you're going to be trying it too. I would love to see what you guys create. Most of you know I do have a Facebook group called Crafting with Debbie. There's a link down to the group down in the description, and I always love seeing what you guys create, so I would be more than happy to have you join us. So thank you guys. You guys have a wonderful week, and I will chat with you again soon. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.